Friends, I know a lot of you are at home with your kids and maybe you just need a little break. So why don't you let me read them a story? This is a book that I wrote called Chester, the Manatee, and the Very, Very Terribly Bad Itch. Here we go. This book is dedicated to every child that feels different. You are remarkable and destined to teach the world something important. Chester the Manatee lived in a beautiful blue spring. The water in the spring was warm and inviting, so lots of other manatees made it their home too. At sunset, they would all swim up the Crystal River to sleep in the lovely springs. And you can see them all there, sleeping on the bottom, underwater. Chester learned the way from his mommy manatee, who learned it from her granny manatee. For thousands of years, the manatees have made this swim from the Gulf of Mexico to the Florida Springs. Chester loved his watery blue home. He especially loved the people that would come visit him and swim in the spring. The people wore diving masks and snorkels. They would giggle and smile at the manatees. You could see the kids there. They're in tubes and they're sitting on the shore and they're playing and having fun in the water. Chester had one regret about the nice people. He could not talk to them like he talked to his manatee friends. The manatees talked with their minds. They didn't have to talk with their mouths. They knew exactly what all the other manatees were thinking. Chester had a problem. He had a very, very terribly bad itch. He asked his best friend Lumpy for help. "Can you help me, Lumpy? I have a very, very terribly bad itch right in the middle of my back, and I can't reach it." I don't know about you, but that happens to me sometimes too. Lumpy answered, "Sorry, my friend. I only have these short flippers. They're great for swimming, but not so good for scratching an itch. I can't help you. Besides, I've got itches too. I've been scratching so much, my skin is all lumpy. It makes some of the people laugh at me." "Oh, sorry, Lumpy. I know how you feel. This very, very terribly bad itch is driving me crazy." Chester swam around asking his other manatee friends for help, but nobody was able to stop his itch. "If I can't find a way to scratch this very, very terribly bad itch, I might go crazy." After Chester had asked every manatee he knew, he decided to ask the people swimming in the spring if they could help. He swam to a little boy and asked for help, but the boy could not hear him. He tried some other happy people, but they were too busy splashing and playing to help him. Some of the people were even scared of him. They swam away as he tried to ask them for help with his mind talk. This made Chester very sad. Manatees would never hurt anyone. Chester couldn't understand why they would possibly be afraid of him. He swam up to a man paddling a kayak and asked, "Can you help me?" But the man backed away since the park rangers had told him to give the manatees space. "But I have a very, very terribly bad itch." He swam to a nice lady. She was an underwater photographer. Chester used his mind talk and called out, "I need help. My back is itchy and I might just go crazy. He came up very close to her camera, and the nice lady just kept taking pictures of Chester. She did not seem to understand his mind talk. Poor Chester. It looked like there was nobody to help him. It seemed like nobody cared about Chester's very, very terribly bad itch, and that made him very, very sad. Chester had to take matters into his own hands, or at least into his own flippers. He found a place on the bottom of the Crystal River to roll on his back, and he rolled and rubbed and rubbed and rolled and hoped somebody would see that he had a problem. He spent all day rolling and rubbing and rubbing and rolling to make his itch go away, but as soon as he stopped, it came back even worse. Chester's best friend Lumpy said, "You're not supposed to scratch like that. It just might make it worse. You might end up even looking like me." Chester was very, very terribly sad. If he didn't figure out what was causing this itch, he might just go crazy. Soon it was dark and time to sleep. Chester tried to get comfortable, but his very, very terribly bad itch just kept waking him up all night long. He was itchy and tired and sad. The next morning, a girl named Jani was swimming in the spring. Chester heard her giggling as she watched him rolling and rubbing and rubbing and rolling on the bottom of the Crystal River. Using his mind talk, he said, "If only you could help me fix this very, very terribly bad itch. But you can't hear me, so I will just keep rolling and rubbing and rubbing and rolling." "But I can hear you, Mr. Manatee," Jani said. And she was smiling. Look at her smiling. Little Jani was a very special girl. She knew how to listen to the animals. She even talked to her dog and cat and knew exactly what they were thinking. "What? You can hear me?" Chester thought hopefully. "I need your help. I can't stop scratching this very, very terribly bad itch." Chester swam up to little Jani, and using one of her hands, she scratched Chester's back as he rolled and giggled and smiled. His very, very terribly bad itch started to feel much, much better. "It's not your fault you're itchy," said Jani. "The people on land are polluting the water. That's why you are itchy." "Oh, no," said Chester. "That can't be true. I love people. Why would they do that? They must not know. There are not too many of us manatees left. If the water in the Crystal River gets polluted, then we will have nowhere else to go." "They just don't know any better," little Jani said. "But I will help you, Mr. Manatee. I will tell everyone about the manatees. I'll tell them that you're very, very terribly bad itchy and that we need to stop polluting the water. I will help." And so Jani, the very special little girl who could mind talk to the manatees, told the adults to take care of the Crystal River. She told them to keep it wild and beautiful for her manatee friend Chester. She asked them to stop using chemicals and fertilizers on their grass. Jani taught them that all the things they put on the ground will drain into the water. She promised Chester she would always remind people to take care of the water. That night, Chester went to sleep in the spring with his friends, and he finally managed to rest well. He nestled up close to Lumpy. His very, very terribly bad itch started to feel much better. "Little Jani will help us," he said. And Lumpy replied, "I hope so. I really love this spring." Chester and Lumpy dozed off to sleep, smiling in the clear blue water of their favorite spring. The end. If you enjoyed hearing this story and want to own this book for yourself, you can go to Amazon and find it online. And all over the world, people can find this in other languages because my friends have translated it to Italian and Spanish and Hebrew and Russian and Dutch and German so that you can enjoy Chester the Manatee in your own language. Thanks for joining me. And if you want to see Chester the Manatee, go to my website, intotheplanet.com. Go to the We Are Water section or the Chester the Manatee section, and you can learn more about Chester and about keeping springs clean. So thanks for bringing me into your household today. I hope you and your family are safe and well in this challenging time. I'm Jill Heinerth. Thanks for joining me.